Okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
We lived a mile east of the Abenfeld Church, and then at the corner was the Guard Cemetery, and we don't know why it was called the Guard Cemetery. And then we lived a half a mile north, and there was a red shed where it was the machine shed where we kept machinery. And then there was a two-story, there was a big barn. It was a big barn, and then we kids would play handy-eye over. And there were two teams, one on each side of the barn, and then we'd throw a baseball, and then we'd holler handy-eye over. And if we'd catch the ball, we'd shout handy-eye over, but quickly run to their side and try to catch them. We had a chicken house, a brooder house, where we'd keep the little baby chicks when we'd get them. And they'd be real yellow and fluffy until they started growing feathers. And then when they were about 2 pounds or a little more, we'd butcher them and fry them. Oh, that was good. A lot better than the bought chickens we get. And the chicken house, it had roosts, and I remember cleaning the chicken house, all the poop, and the nests. The chickens had laid eggs in the nests.
So you're starting to tell me about when you were born, and the midwife was a Mrs. Shepler?
And then the granary and the front, well, we had a hayloft. And then our house was a 2-story house facing south. It had a long south window, and the foundation on the north side, we would pile up dirt, I guess, to keep it warm, the foundation. And then on the south side was an opening where we would, where the coal was
delivered
shoveled in. We had a coal furnace. Oh, it felt so good, but we just saved that for special occasions, because coal we had to buy. And we had a wood burning stove. We would, in winter, we would close off as much as we could and move into the main the dining room, and the kitchen was closed off, except on Saturdays when it was baking day. Zwieback every Saturday. Mama'd bake zwieback.
I'm going to
And,
take a little break here.
A dining room, a parlor that we used just for special occasions. And then we had a north bedroom. It was a small one. And we'd close that off. But in spring, about first part of April, we would open the windows, wash the curtains, clean the floor, and oh, it just smelled so good, that fresh air.
You were starting to tell me earlier about when you were born and who the midwife was.
Yeah. Mrs. Scheffler, I guess, would come out with the horse and buggy, and I was born, and Wes Lowen was born, and that was the night when the Abendfeld Church burned down.
Oh.
And then Wes and I was 1 week older than he, and we grew up like we were just inseparable. But then when we got older, we went our separate ways, but we were always glad to see each other.
Yeah.
The house, we had a south bedroom with a long window, and then we had a hall, and that we called the prowl stove, junk room. We had a bench that hung from chains from the ceiling to hold that bench, and that's where we kept our big bags of flour and sugar, because the mice could not get into it. The mice just loved mulling around in the flour. So we had to keep them away, and that was one way that they could not get the junk room. Had a little window to the north, and you could see the traffic driving east and west. Um, we didn't have a closet. We didn't have that many clothes upstairs, so my clothes were all on the hooks on the board. And then we had a little bedroom to the north. It was just a small bedroom. And then we had oil lamps, but we had what they called Aladdin, and that really gave out nice bright light. The oil lamps were kind of yellow, burning. And we had, let's see, Aladdin. Lamps. Oh, that little north bedroom had a red trunk, and Adolf got that trunk, but I got the one that my dad, when he came from Germany, Russia, I had got that trunk, and I sold it at the sale, and I don't remember how much I got for it, but it had engraved on the board E.J. Klein, and he was 18 years old when he left
It was
Germany.
Well, it was South Russia.
Yeah.
It's the Ukraine now.
But imagine, 18 years old.
Yeah.
And then when they came to Kansas, United States to Kansas, he married
Katerina Gensel.
Yeah. And then during World
War I.
Yeah. When during World War I, then he moved his family to Canada because he didn't want his sons to go to war. So after the war, some of the spouses married Canadian people, and some stayed there, and some brought their spouses back to Kansas. To Kansas. And then remember one cold winter day. I was cleaning the chicken house, and I'd go inside to warm up, and Mom was making onion gravy. Oh, that smelled good. Served that with potatoes with jackets on.
Mm-hmm.
Our telephones, we had what they called a party line, about 7 or 6 families on one line. Our number was 9722, 2 longs and 2 shorts. And when Votes Grocery would get in a load of Colorado peaches, they'd make a company ring. It'd be beep, 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 beep. And then we'd all have, the telephones were nailed to the wall. So we had to run to the wall and pick up the receiver, and then they'd say, Votes Grocery got a truckload of peaches. So my folks hurried to town to buy peaches.
Mm-hmm.
That was called a company ring. And then when somebody's phone would ring, we could always hear somebody else's telephone ringing, and then we'd run and pick up the receiver, and that's where we got our news.
Mm-hmm.
And they'd say, well, they could hear us click. They'd say, well, somebody's listening.
Mm-hmm.
And then when my dad's wife died, he would come and visit Liz, Mrs. John Laven, who was my half sister.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom, she married Ed Fogt. And when he was sick, he was in the Halstead Hospital. So Adolf would load up the horse and buggy, and they would drive to Halstead. I don't know how long it took by horse and wagon. And when they got there, they went to the room, and he wasn't there. And then the nurse told them, well, he passed away. So there she was with one son and 3 girls, 4 children. That must have been devastating. They came home, and
So when did your dad meet your mother? You were saying he visited Elizabeth? And
Well,
did she know your mother?
okay. Then my dad, he would always come to Liz, his daughter, Mrs. John Laban, and then she would tell him about my mom.
Oh.
So he, I guess, went over and started visiting with my mom, and then they got married.
Mm-hmm.
He had 10 living children. Mom had 4 living children. So I had 14 brothers and sisters, but I am an only child. 9 years and ours.
Mm-hmm.
When the first time I introduced Melvin to my family, I said, "This is my brother Adolf." And then when we went, I said, "This is my sister Ann." And then on the way home, he said, "Didn't you introduce me to Adolf and Ann?" And I said, "Yeah." "Well, where were their spouses?" I said, "Well, they're married to each other. My dad's daughter married my mom's son." Oh, I'm just rambling on.
Yeah. Let me shut this off a minute. Okay.
In our kitchen, we had a cistern with the box up, and then with the wheel, we'd draw water. And we'd have a tank outside that when it rained, we let the dust wash off the roof into that tank. We'd use that for washing clothes. And then when we thought it was clean, then we'd turn it into our cistern, and we called that shingle tea. We'd have a rope tied onto a little bucket where we'd keep our cream, milk, and butter, and then we'd let it down to keep it cool. And sometimes the water bucket would bump against that little bucket, and then it'd fall in the cistern. And then my dad would have to get down there and try to get it back up again. Let's see. Oh, then we had a little room from the kitchen north, and then the pantry, and that was to the north, and sometimes some of the stuff froze, so we thought that wasn't any good, we'd throw it away. Now we freeze stuff to keep it. In the that little room was in summer, was it was called an icy bowl, where little box where we'd keep it cold, refrigerated. That was our first refrigerator. And then in winter, we'd turn it into a bath, toilet.
Hmm. You want to talk about when you met Dad?
What?
When you met Dad, Melvin. Do you want to tell a story about meeting Dad, Melvin? No, you don't have to.
Oh, yeah. And then when he said, well, didn't you introduce me to Ann and to Adolf? And then he says, where were the partners? And I said, well, they're married to each other. And he said, what crazy family am I getting into?
Mm. Well, if you want to take a break, I'll try and tell you my story.
Yeah, I have to go to the bathroom.